Welcome to Real Bonds, the space where we explore relationships through science, not through fairy tales. I guarantee that the next 30 minutes will completely change your perspective on how a relationship can either boost or sabotage your most important dreams. If this is your first time here, this channel is dedicated to bringing you deep content about conscious relationships based on scientific evidence. You won't find empty motivational phrases or generic self-help advice. Here we dive into the real psychology of relationships. So I invite you to join this community of people who are committed to building extraordinary bonds based on knowledge, not fantasy. Now let's get to what you came here to discover. Powerful opening. I want you to do a mental exercise with me. Imagine for a moment that you have an important dream. Maybe you want to start a business, write a book, change careers, or develop a talent you've been putting off for years. Now imagine that every time you talk about this dream with your partner, you receive one of these responses. This again. Don't be naive. That doesn't work. And who's going to pay the bills while you chase your fantasies? Or simply indifferent silence? How would you feel? How long do you think your motivation would last? Take a deep breath. Now imagine the completely opposite scenario. Every time you mention your project, your partner asks with genuine interest how it's progressing, helps you think through solutions when you encounter obstacles, celebrates every small step forward with you, and reminds you of your capabilities when you doubt yourself. The difference between these two realities isn't simply about feeling good or bad. It's the difference between multiplying your potential or cutting it in half. And this isn't cheap motivation. It's neuroscience applied to relationships. In this content, we're going to discover how a couple that propels each other can be the most powerful catalyst for your personal success. And more importantly, how to create exactly that dynamic in your relationship. The science behind mutual support. The Michelangelo effect in relationships. Let me tell you about one of the most fascinating discoveries in relationship psychology. It's called the Michelangelo effect. Researchers at Vrije University in Amsterdam discovered something extraordinary. When your partner sees you and treats you as the best version of yourself, you literally become that version. It's not magic. It's not positive thinking. It's a concrete, psychological process. When someone you love believes in your potential, three specific things happen in your brain. First, your self-perception expands. You begin to see yourself through the eyes of someone who believes in you. And this changes your internal narrative. That voice telling you, "I can't," starts to weaken. Second, your level of self-efficacy increases. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to achieve specific goals. When someone trusts you, you internalize that trust. And third, your tolerance for failure strengthens because you know there's someone who won't judge you if something doesn't turn out as expected. Listen to this carefully. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology followed 163 couples for 9 months. The results were striking. People whose partners perceived them in a way that aligned with their ideal self didn't just report greater relationship satisfaction. They showed measurable personal growth. They improved in the specific areas where they received that affirmative support. Think about it. Your partner doesn't just make you feel better. They literally make you better. The neurological cost of emotional sabotage. But here comes the part many people ignore. The negative impact of a partner who sabotages your goals isn't simply feeling bad. It's real neurological wear and tear. And you need to understand this because it changes everything. When you constantly receive messages that invalidate your aspirations, your prefrontal cortex experiences cognitive overload. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain responsible for planning and decision-making. So what happens? You have to fight not only against the external challenges of pursuing your goals, but also against the internal resistance generated by the lack of support in your most important relationship. It's like trying to run a marathon with weights on your ankles. And here's the worst part. Researchers at Carnegie Mellon discovered that people in relationships where they don't receive support for their personal goals have chronically elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And listen to the real problem. Chronic cortisol doesn't just make you feel anxious, it also impairs your working memory, reduces your creativity, and diminishes your ability to persevere in the face of obstacles. In practical terms, this means something crucial. A relationship that doesn't support you isn't neutral. It's not simply the absence of benefit. It's an active anchor that reduces your real capacity to achieve your goals. Reciprocity as a growth engine. This is where it gets really interesting. The most successful couples don't operate under a model of "I support you when you support me." That's transactional and fragile. That breaks down at the first crisis. They operate under what researchers call asynchronous support. What does this mean? That sometimes you're in a phase of intense growth in your career or project, and your partner carries more load in other areas. And other times, the roles reverse. It's not 50-50 every day. It's a dynamic balance that adjusts according to the needs of each moment. A study from the University of California in Los Angeles followed high-performing couples for 5 years. They discovered that couples who maintained this flexibility, where support flowed according to who needed it most at each stage, not only stayed together more frequently, both members achieved significantly higher levels of professional and personal success than their counterparts in more rigid relationships. The key is in one word: true reciprocity. It's not keeping score. It's trusting that the balance will be maintained over time and that both are genuinely committed to each other's success. How a partner multiplies your productivity. Now let's get practical. How exactly does a partner who propels you multiply your productivity? I've identified 4 specific mechanisms based on research and analysis of high-performing couples. Pay close attention because each of these points can transform your reality. First mechanism: amplification of cognitive resources. When you work on a project or pursue a complex goal, your brain has limited processing capacity. You face what psychologists call cognitive load. You have to think about strategy, execution, obstacles, contingencies. Your mind has limits. A partner who propels you functions as a second processor, not because they think for you, but because they ask you the right questions that help you think more clearly. What's the worst that could happen? What would you need for this to work? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? These questions aren't trivial. They activate different neural networks in your brain. They allow you to see angles that your mind, trapped in details, cannot see. It's like having a cognitive mirror that reflects your blind spots. I know an entrepreneur who told me something I never forgot. My wife doesn't understand anything about technology, but every time I explain a problem with my startup to her, she asks such a basic question that it makes me rethink my entire strategy. It's not that she has the answers. It's that she forces me to think differently. That's real cognitive amplification. Second mechanism: shared emotional regulation. Listen to this very carefully, because this is where most people abandon their dreams. Every significant project involves moments of doubt, frustration, and fear. The problem isn't lack of ability, it's lack of emotional regulation. A partner who propels you isn't a cheerleader telling you everything will be fine. It's someone who can contain your frustration without judging you, who can validate your fear without amplifying it, and who can celebrate your small advances without minimizing them. Research on dyadic emotional regulation, which is the technical term for this, shows something powerful. Couples who can effectively co-regulate their emotions have a much greater capacity for resilience. They can maintain effort toward long-term goals because emotional wear is distributed between two people instead of falling on just one. You're not alone when you fail. You're not alone when you doubt. And that simple reality completely changes your ability to persevere. Third mechanism, the liberation of decisional energy. Every day, we make thousands of micro-decisions. What to eat, what clothes to wear, what time to leave, what to buy at the supermarket. Studies by Roy Baumeister on decision fatigue demonstrate that every decision you make consumes glucose in your brain. That's why by the end of the day, your ability to make good decisions decreases dramatically. You've exhausted your mental fuel. In a couple that functions as a team, many of these micro-decisions are automated or delegated naturally. You don't have to negotiate every detail of daily logistics. This frees up mental energy for the decisions that really matter in your projects. I'm not talking about traditional gender roles, I'm talking about shared efficiency. If one of you is cooking, the other can be solving a work problem. If one handles household finances, the other can focus on planning the next quarter of their venture. The key is intelligent distribution of cognitive loads. Fourth mechanism, the network effect of opportunities. A partner who propels you doesn't just give you emotional support. They connect you with opportunities. They talk about your projects with others, introduce you to contacts, identify resources you don't see because you're too focused on details. Stanford researchers studied successful entrepreneurs and discovered that a significant proportion of their key connections came through their partners. Not because the partner did networking for them, but because they naturally expanded the circle of possibilities. Your partner lives in different contexts than you, knows people you don't know, sees opportunities from angles you don't see. When there's a true culture of mutual support, those opportunities are shared naturally. The perfect balance: successful relationship plus personal projects. Here comes one of the questions you're probably asking yourself. How do I balance my relationship with my personal projects without either suffering? The uncomfortable truth is that you can't balance what's in conflict. If your relationship and your projects are at war, no balance is possible. But if they're aligned, balance becomes natural. Let me give you a concrete framework that has worked for hundreds of couples. Instead of thinking about time for the relationship versus time for my projects, think about shared energy versus individual energy. There are times when you need absolute individual energy, deep concentration, no interruptions, total focus. These are your sacred production hours, and it's okay for your partner to know that during that time, you're not emotionally available. But there are also times when shared energy enhances both worlds. You can work together in a cafe, each on your projects, but sharing the space. You can have conversations about your respective challenges while walking together. You can celebrate progress while preparing dinner. The key is explicit communication. This Saturday, I need 4 hours of absolute focus to finish this proposal. Can we plan something special on Sunday? It's specific, it's reasonable, and it honors both needs. A University of Washington study on dual-career couples found something revealing. The most satisfied couples weren't those who spent more time together. They were those who had clarity about time and energy expectations. They knew when to be present and when to give space. Signs that your relationship multiplies your productivity. Let me give you 5 concrete indicators that your relationship is multiplying your capacity, not subtracting from it. Sign number 1. You finish conversations with your partner feeling clearer about your next steps, not more confused. If you constantly come out of conversations about your projects feeling demotivated or questioned in a destructive way, it's a warning sign. Sign number 2. Your partner knows your specific goals and asks about them naturally. You don't have to constantly remind them what you're working on or why it's important. There's a shared memory of your vision. Sign number 3. When you face a failure or setback, your first instinct is to share it with your partner because you know you'll get useful perspective, not judgment. Vulnerability is safe. Sign number 4. You celebrate micro-progress together, not just big achievements. Your partner recognizes effort, not just results. This is crucial because most significant work is made up of small, incremental steps. Sign number 5. There's real reciprocity. You support your partner's projects with the same energy that he or she supports yours. It's not transactional, but there's a natural balance over time. When your partner doesn't support your dreams, this is where the conversation becomes delicate, but absolutely necessary. Not all disagreement or questioning is lack of support, and not all lack of support is malicious sabotage. We need to make important distinctions because your response must be different in each case. Diagnosis. Is it resistance or sabotage? There are 3 different levels of lack of support, and each requires a completely different approach. Level 1. Protective skepticism. Your partner questions your idea or project, but from a place of genuine concern. They're afraid you'll get hurt, that you'll fail, that you'll lose financial stability. It's not that they don't want you to grow, it's that they're afraid of the consequences. This is uncomfortable, but it's not sabotage, it's fear. And fear is worked through with information, with concrete plans, with demonstration that you've thought about the risks. A real example: a man wanted to leave his corporate job to start a business. His wife was terrified, not because she didn't believe in him, but because they had 2 children and a mortgage. The conversation changed when he showed her a 6-month transition plan, with specific savings, with clients already confirmed, and with a clear plan B. Her skepticism didn't disappear immediately, but it transformed into cautious support, because she saw preparation, not just enthusiasm. Level 2. Emotional indifference. Your partner doesn't actively question you, but doesn't show interest either. When you talk about your projects, they change the subject quickly, respond with monosyllables. Don't celebrate your progress. Don't ask how things are going. This is more complex because there's no open conflict, but there's no connection either. And indifference is, in many ways, more destructive than active opposition. Because it's invisible and cumulative. It slowly eats away at your motivation. Indifference generally signals one of 2 problems. Either there's a deeper emotional disconnection in the relationship that goes beyond your projects, or your partner feels excluded from something that's important to you and has stopped trying to connect. The solution here isn't to convince your partner to be interested. It's to have an honest conversation about the disconnection. I've noticed that when I talk about this project, you seem uninterested. Is there something I'm doing that makes you feel excluded? Or I feel we're emotionally disconnected. Do you feel it too? Level 3. Active sabotage. Here, your partner actively undermines your efforts, minimizes your achievements, mocks your ideas, creates practical obstacles, makes you feel guilty about the time you invest in your projects, compares your situation with others in a destructive way. This isn't protection or indifference. This is sabotage, and you need to name it as such. Active sabotage generally has roots in one of three places: deep insecurity of your partner about their own value, fear that your growth will leave them behind, or accumulated resentment over perceived imbalances in the relationship. Difficult conversations you must have. If you're experiencing lack of support at any of these levels, you need to have difficult conversations, not attacks, not defenses, real conversations. Let me give you a framework for these conversations based on Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. Step 1. Observation without judgment. I've noticed that when I talk to you about my project, you change the subject quickly, instead of "you never support me." In recent weeks, when I achieve progress, we don't celebrate it together. Instead of "you don't care about my successes." The difference is crucial. One is an observable fact. The other is an interpretation loaded with judgment that puts the other person on the defensive. Step 2. Identification of feelings. When this happens, I feel alone in something that's important to me. I feel frustrated because I feel I can't share this part of my life with you. Not, "you make me feel bad." You're responsible for your feelings, but you have the right to name them. Step 3. Expression of needs. I need to feel that what I'm passionate about matters to you, even if you don't fully understand it. I need us to celebrate small progress together. Needs are legitimate. They're not demands. They're the expression of what you require to feel connected and supported. Step 4. Specific request. Would you be willing to have 10 minutes every Sunday night where each of us shares how our week is going with our projects? Could you ask me once a week how this project that's important to me is going? Specific requests are actionable. Support me more isn't. Ask me how my project is going on Fridays is. When it's time to reconsider the relationship. Now, the question many are afraid to ask: when is it time to accept that this relationship won't change and consider ending it? I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If after honest conversations, reasonable time, genuine effort from both parties, your partner continues to actively sabotage your legitimate aspirations, you have a difficult decision to make. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. It's possible to love someone and recognize that being together doesn't allow either of you to flourish. It's possible for two good people to be toxic together. A longitudinal study from the University of Michigan followed people who ended relationships due to incompatibility in life aspirations. 5 years later, most reported not only greater professional and personal success, but also greater ability to form more aligned relationships. I'm not saying to abandon your relationship at the first sign of conflict. I'm saying that your personal growth is non-negotiable, and if your relationship requires you to make yourself smaller for it to work, it's not the right relationship. 3 signs that it's time to seriously reconsider. Sign 1. You've had honest conversations multiple times and nothing changes. Not just promises of change, real and sustained change. Sign 2. You find yourself hiding your successes or minimizing your achievements to avoid conflict. This is a sign that the relationship requires you to betray your authenticity. Sign 3. Your mental health is deteriorating. constant anxiety, depression, loss of motivation that goes beyond the normal stress of pursuing challenging goals. Real cases that illustrate all this. Now I want to show you 3 real cases that perfectly illustrate these dynamics. Names have been changed, but the stories are completely real. Case 1. The amplifying effect. Maria is an architect. Carlos is a chef. When they met, Maria was working in a traditional studio, mainly designing corporate spaces. She had the dream of specializing in sustainable architecture, but was afraid of the financial risk of changing specializations. Carlos didn't know anything about architecture, but he knew a lot about Maria. He saw how she lit up when talking about ecological design. He saw how she devoured books on sustainable construction in her free time. And he decided to do something simple but powerful. Every week, he would ask her, "What did you learn this week about sustainable architecture?" This simple question created something extraordinary. Maria began to structure her learning more intentionally because she knew she would have to articulate it. She began to look for small, sustainable design projects as a freelancer. Carlos helped her calculate budgets using the same skills he used for his restaurant. 3 years later, Maria has her own studio specialized in ecological architecture. But here's what's interesting. Carlos also transformed his career. Inspired by Maria's focus on sustainability, he created a zero-waste restaurant concept that is now a reference in their city. What made the difference? Carlos didn't try to become an expert in architecture. He created the space for Maria to become an expert. And Maria did the same for him. They empowered each other not because they had the same passions, but because they deeply respected each other's passions. Case 2. The invisible sabotage. Anna wanted to write a book. It had been her dream for years. Roberto said he supported her, but every time Anna sat down to write, Roberto found something urgent that needed attention. "Can you help me with this? Can we talk about that? Don't you think we should do this thing first?" It was never direct opposition. They were always reasonable requests, but the pattern was clear. Every attempt by Anna to dedicate time to her writing was interrupted. When Anna finally confronted this, Roberto became defensive. "So now, I can't ask you for help." But with couples therapy, the deeper truth came out. Roberto felt threatened. If Anna became a published author, would she still need him? Would she still see him as her equal? This is a common and tragic form of sabotage. It doesn't come from evil. It comes from fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of losing relevance. Fear that the other's growth means abandonment. Anna and Roberto's story had a mixed outcome. They worked in therapy for 6 months. Roberto began working on his own insecurities. Anna established clearer boundaries about her writing time. The book was published, but the relationship ended a year later. Not because the book destroyed the relationship, but because the process revealed deeper incompatibilities that both had been ignoring. Ending was painful, but necessary. Today, both are in healthier relationships and report greater life satisfaction. Case 3. Perfect synergy. This is my favorite case because it demonstrates that mutual support can exist even in extremely challenging circumstances. Jennifer is a doctor. Michael is a musician. When Jennifer decided to do a specialization that required moving to another city for 2 years, Michael faced a decision: resent the sacrifice or embrace it as an opportunity for both. He chose the latter. He moved with her, found work as a music teacher in that new city. But more importantly, he created a specific routine. Sunday nights, no matter what, were their strategic synchronization time. In those 2 hours, Each shared their week's challenges, their victories, and their needs for the following week. It wasn't just conversation, it was real planning. This week I have 3 night shifts, so I need you to handle the shopping. This month I have an important concert, so I need extra practice on Thursday afternoons. What made this brilliant was explicit reciprocity. It wasn't Michael sacrificing himself for Jennifer. It was both co-creating a life that allowed both to pursue their passions, with the clarity that sometimes one would carry more weight temporarily. 2 years later, they returned to their original city. Jennifer is now head of service at her hospital. Michael has a thriving music school. They have 2 children. And they still maintain their Sunday strategic synchronization sessions. What's the lesson? Mutual support isn't spontaneous. It's designed. It's intentional. It's conversed. It's constantly adjusted. The patterns that separate both dynamics. After studying dozens of cases like these, I've identified 3 patterns that consistently separate couples who empower each other from those who sabotage. Pattern 1. Celebration versus comparison. Couples who empower genuinely celebrate each other's successes. Those who sabotage, even subtly, compare. Good for you on your promotion, although I had to wait 3 years for mine. Comparison kills shared joy. Pattern 2. Curiosity versus indifference. Empowering couples ask questions. They want to understand. They don't need to be experts in each other's field, but they show genuine curiosity. Sabotaging couples show indifference, or worse, active disinterest. Pattern 3. Space versus control. Healthy couples give space for individual growth while maintaining connection. Toxic ones try to control, even passively, how much time, energy, or resources the other can dedicate to their personal projects. Practical strategies to create synergy. Now let's get to what really matters. Concrete strategies you can implement today with your partner. The ritual of shared intentions. At the beginning of each month, dedicate an hour to what I call the ritual of shared intentions. Each person writes 3 things: a personal goal for the month, a relationship goal, and a specific way the other can support that personal goal. It's simple, but it transforms the dynamic. You're no longer asking for support reactively when you're frustrated. You're designing it proactively when you're both calm and connected. The reciprocity bank principle. Instead of keeping score day by day, think of support as a long-term emotional bank. This month, you intensely support your partner's project. Next month, the roles reverse. The key is trust that the bank will always balance out. This requires 2 things: clear communication about when you need intense support, and keeping your word when it's your turn to give that support. The magic weekly question. I'll end with this. Every week, ask your partner this question and ask them to ask it of you. What do you need from me this week to feel supported in what's important to you? Don't assume you know. Ask, and when your partner responds, take note. Literally, write it down and do your best to fulfill it. That simple question, asked consistently, creates more connection and support than 1,000 romantic declarations. Powerful closing. We've reached the end of this content. But before we say goodbye, I want you to take away this final truth. Your potential isn't just yours. It's deeply influenced by the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're in a serious relationship, your partner is number 1 on that list. I'm not saying your success depends on your partner. I'm saying your success will be significantly easier, more sustainable, and more satisfying if your partner is a genuine ally instead of a silent obstacle. And if you're in a relationship where mutual support doesn't exist, you have two options. Work intentionally to build it, using the strategies we've discussed in this content. Or have the courage to recognize that perhaps this isn't the relationship that allows you to flourish. Because at the end of the day, a relationship that requires you to make yourself smaller to function isn't love. It's fear disguised as compromise. If this content has served you, I invite you again to join this community. We create deep content about conscious relationships every week, because we believe your love life deserves the same level of strategy and intention as your professional career. Remember, it's not about finding the perfect partner. It's about building together the perfect relationship for both of you. We'll hear from each other in the next content.